Hey Kings, welcome back to the Augustus Maximus channel and back to Hearts of Iron 4. And today we are playing vanilla again, but we are playing Communist Hungary, which is a big old meme. Yes, I know. Communist Hungary is basically one of the worst, focus tree paths, or whatever you want to call the focus tree branches you can go down, because you effectively gain nothing from it. You gain research with the Soviet Union, you gain the access to the Comintern, which is, well, that's not really worth anything, is it? Because you can just join the Comintern through various other means, even if you're not communist. But you gained 5% recruitable population, and that's basically it. That's all you get. You get 5% recruitable population, you get access to Transylvania, which you do with every single focus tree path with Hungary, except for the democratic one, but with the democratic one you do gain access to a whole bunch of oil and other bonuses. So it's not actually all that great. Yes, in fact, it's the worst path and we are playing with the Anime no Sekai mod again, because why not? But yeah, with the communist focus tree path for Hungary, you gain nothing except for recruitable population and Transylvania, and you don't actually core Transylvania, which is interesting, because with, for example, the fascist path or the monarchist path, you do gain cores on Transylvania because of the large Hungarian population that lives within that area, obviously. But with the communist one, you don't gain cores on Transylvania. And what is actually humorous is that that's the least of our worries, because as a communist Hungary, you have obviously the terrible focus tree, but your positioning is so bad because you are effectively surrounded by Axis powers, except for the south, theoretically. We have Germany to the north and west, obviously. When it comes to like post-1939, obviously, after all the, all the treaties and the whole setup of the game, effectively during the start of the Second World War, and when technically the Comintern should get involved with the Axis powers when it comes to combat. You have Germany to the north and the west, you have Italy, theoretically, to the west, you have Romania to the east, obviously, and the south is somewhat debatable, but Italy and Germany take over Yugoslavia so quickly, and sometimes Yugoslavia even outright just joins the Axis, that that's a very mute point. That's basically saying nothing. It's really not a great position. So what I was thinking with this whole setup is that it's such a meme, but it has so much potential because you're effectively in the back line of the Comintern. You are in their rear, so to say, when they're fighting against the Soviets. What I thought might be an interesting strategy is to create a fortress Hungary, where we don't actually engage within any sort of conflict after taking Transylvania, theoretically. We don't engage in any sort of conflict at all, except for when we are so deep behind enemy lines that it becomes a nuisance to them. And we don't actually advance all that much. We're not going to advance all that much at all. We're just gonna hold Hungary tooth and nail and distract the Axis from the Eastern Front and from the Western Front as well, obviously, as much as possible. Because the AI is obviously going to try and surround us and try and prevent us from advancing, which we're not gonna do at all. But we are effectively just going to serve as a nuisance to them, which is, it's doable, and it's doable because you have that 5% recruitable population. You have enough manpower to man your entire front, and we're not exactly going to build any sort of sophisticated divisions. We're just going to go pure 20 with infantry for that, because it's the cheapest, we can do it reliably. We can do it easily because we can just rely on like basic guns for that, and basic infantry actually does have quite a lot of defense to it, so that's what we're going to do in this game. At least that's the plan. Again, that's the theory of what we're going to do, because, well, as per usual, it could all just backfire, as with, well, basically all my videos in Hearts of Iron 4. You know, you think something up, you have this grand strategy in mind, And then it just all comes crashing down because either the AI is stupid, the game is stupid, your soldiers are stupid, or your game crashes. You know, that's the usual outcome. But I'm hoping this one time, because it's such a meme, Communist Hungary is such a great meme, I'm really hoping that this time it works out, because, well, it'd be even a better meme if it actually just works, you know, if it's such a terrible focus tree path, but this one strategy with it works. Because as Communist Hungary, I mean, where are you going to advance? Where are you going to engage? It takes such a long time to turn communist as well, because Horthy has the debuff on actually turning communist, which makes this whole situation even worse. But it's gonna take a very long time, and when you finally turn communist, I mean, where exactly are you going to advance? Are you gonna take out Czechoslovakia? Well, no, because they're guaranteed by both Romania and Western powers, theoretically. You can't attack Yugoslavia because they are guaranteed by Czechoslovakia and Romania, if I remember correctly. And so you can't really do anything. You can't take out Romania because, again, they are... Are they guaranteed? I don't remember if they're guaranteed. Probably not. No, actually, Romania isn't guaranteed. But you can't actually take out Romania. They have a much better army. And when the time actually comes for you to be able to even do anything to them, well, you can join the Comintern and try something with that, but usually just get beaten back, and usually the Soviets don't actually try to help you in any sort of meaningful way. It's actually much easier to defeat Romania as communist Czechoslovakia, because you can just take out Hungary and then go from there, and because Czechoslovakia has a much better time when turning communist, and has a much better army and everything like that, doesn't really have to go through the whole process of rearming. It's just a much easier process. So it's Communist Hungary. We're just gonna fortification ourselves. No, we are gonna fortify ourselves. We're gonna dig deep trenches, very, very deep trenches. We're gonna go grand battle plan, because, you know, the Communist Hungary, or just Hungary, has a very terrible army tree. You only get bonuses for mobile warfare and grand battle plan, so we can't exactly go mass mob for the manpower, which is actually quite a shame, because mass mob is a great meme as well. So we could combine the two memes, but we can't do that. So a very, very big shame. But that's the plan. And it's gonna take a very long time to actually even turn communist, not to mention even doing anything. So yeah, I'm gonna have to skip quite a bit here, but well, it's safe to say that nothing's gonna happen. Okay, here we go. It took us 1.5 years, but we are finally turning communist, assassinating Horthy and turning communist. And yeah, after that, it's well, probably can just take out just take back Transylvania, but I'm mostly interested in what the girl that's gonna lead us is gonna look like. And I don't think she has any bonuses, which is quite a shame. That would be one way to ratify this whole situation with Communist Hungary, but there we go. She doesn't quite look like an egg, as the as the communist leader of Hungary usually looks like, so that's a big ol' shame. But she looks communist enough, so that's okay. Fun fact: we can't actually join the Comintern at all, even though we're communist already, because we need to have above 50% communist support. Which is quite stupid in and of itself, because you can join the Comintern as any other communist nation ever if you flip manually, just by clicking on the Soviet Union, clicking join faction, and then joining the faction. But with Communist Hungary, that's not an option, because we're supposedly, I don't know why. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Brilliant. Okay, my mistake. First of all, we're gonna intervene in Czechoslovakia, because that's a thing. And yeah, and hopefully from this, to ratify the situation, because it's bad enough. Hopefully, not only do we get southern Slovakia, which usually fascist Hungary gets southern Slovakia, then later on they get Carpathian Ruthenia, but hopefully we also get yeah, we just get southern Slovakia and Carpathian Ruthenia right off the bat right here, because that would actually be quite helpful. Historically, during this time, pressure from the Soviet Union would be very influential in Czechoslovakia, because the well, the leadership had a very positive relationship with the USSR during this period of time, and seeing as Czechoslovakia is threatened by the Germans, they might sort of be inclined to give us both. But here we go, they return only Southern Slovakia. Well, that's a shame. But hopefully with Romania it gets a little bit better. I guess Stalin just wasn't willing to pressure them enough, which is kind of curious. But yeah, we only get Southern Slovakia, even though we also have a claim on Carpathian Ruthenia. And we don't get a core in Southern Slovakia, of course. No. Even though there was a very big Hungarian population in that region during this period of time. We also have a claim on Carpathian Ruthenia because of the population there and because of historical claims, because of everything like that. But no, we don't get it because we were playing Communist Hungary. I guess that's my best bet. Okay, so now we're gonna pressure Romania. And Joseph Stalin turns down... Okay, so I guess we're not gonna get it then? Or how does this work? I guess we can go to war with them, but that's not exactly brilliant because they're guaranteed both by Czechoslovakia and France, so I guess we can press them. I don't know. I'm just gonna save this game because I'm kind of worried as to what's actually going to happen here. Okay, so they refuse. Okay, so this is proceeding as per usual, but we are communist now. So do we get to ask the Soviets again? Okay, let's approach Italy because Italy usually gives it to fascist Hungary. Okay. So the Italians. Okay, so the fascist Italians were like, communist Hungary wants us to help them negotiate? Yeah, sure, whatever. Well, let's compromise. What is happening? What is actually happening? So Stalin refuses our offer, but Mussolini was like, yeah, sure, whatever, man. Oh no, this is just strange. This is not even like bad or good. This is just so strange. But why would Stalin refuse that offer? Man, that's kind of asshole-ish of him, isn't it? Like, I had to turn to Mussolini? By any stretch of the imagination right now, I should be just completely pissed with Stalin because he refused my offer when it comes to Romania, and he only pressed the Czechoslovakians enough to give me Southern Slovakia, but not Carpathian Ruthenia, and not the entirety of Transylvania when it comes to Romania. But Mussolini, as in one of the fascist members, or the fascist, let's say, greater powers within Europe, was like, yeah, sure, man, I guess that's kind of okay. So, by any stretch of the imagination, I'm completely aligned with the Axis when it comes to international diplomacy right now, when it comes to geopolitics. So, actually, I should be like, screw Stalin, let's go with the Axis right now and just play standard Hungary. But, okay, let's sort of remove ourselves from realism right now. Okay, let's just completely forget that ever happened. Let's just pretend that Stalin was benevolent. Okay, let's just pretend. Because, yeah, in a really realistic scenario, even like just from a non-realistic scenario, from like a purely gameplay perspective, I should be like, yeah, the Axis seem to be more willing to cooperate with Hungary than the Soviets, so let's go with them. Because... yeah, I'm not on board with Stalin after this, but okay, let's stick with him because I still want to go through with my plan of Fortress Hungary. Okay, so let's try and go with that because it's not really looking all that great when it comes to realistically working with Stalin. And yeah, after the Munich Agreement and the fate of Czechoslovakia, regular Hungary gets Carpathian Ruthenia. But we don't get it this time because, well, we're communist and yeah, we're aligned with Moscow. And so we don't get anything, actually. Yeah, brilliant. I thought communism was about sharing. This is just so weird. This is a big meme, yeah. Okay, so I skipped forward a whole bunch because, well, nothing was happening and I still haven't joined the war or anything like that. I'm just trying to fortify myself to the best of my ability, but the Soviets are actually pushing back. at least against the Romanians. And the Allies are actually doing great work when it comes to Greece and Yugoslavia, more so than the Soviets up north. But yeah, it looks like the Balkans are actually quite good. Mostly because we actually aren't on the Axis side. Hungary does play quite a significant role when it comes to the whole Balkan situation, because obviously the Axis can use Hungary as a staging point for their invasion against Yugoslavia, and they obviously provide a lot of troops when it comes to invading Romania, Yugoslavia, Greece, everything like that, even the Eastern Front. To a certain extent, they can even influence Africa a little bit, because they they can send over the planes quite a bit and everything like that. They do provide quite a lot of trade for the Axis. So the absence of Hungary when it comes to the Axis side is not insignificant, to put it mildly. I guess these forts won't be needed anymore, so let's just get rid of them and let's get into the fight. Because, well, my army, it's not the best. It's not like I'm really prepared for this, but I'm more worried about the manpower situation. Because even though you do gain 5% recruitable population just from the focus tree, the lack of having cores on Transylvania does actually hurt quite a bit, because not only do you not gain as much manpower from it as you would normally, that is the fascist path, but you also don't get, well, you have to police them, as in you have to have the... I have no idea what the divisions are called, but essentially police divisions to keep compliance high, essentially. And that means that we'll just lack manpower, or we're gonna lack manpower quite a bit when it comes to even advancing at all into Romania. So, yeah, southern, or the entirety of Transylvania, or southern Transylvania, Banat, and stuff like that should be our cores, and thus advancing into them we should gain a lot of territory, or a lot of manpower, and a lot of industry, but we gain nothing from it, but we just have to police the territory, and we lose men by attacking it. So it's, I mean, theoretically it's obviously a good thing, because we have to win the war, and so taking out Romania is quite a big stepping stone towards that goal, but it's also kind of a negative, because, well, we lose a lot of manpower, and we can't exactly throw divisions at the enemy. Maybe if we had a mass mob and the access to another 5% recruitable population from mass mob, the situation would be a little bit different. But obviously we don't, because, well, I don't know. The strength of Hungary is within well, from the focus tree, obviously get bonuses for grand battle plan, and since we're theoretically trying to defend, grand battle plan isn't actually all that terrible, but mass mob would be, I think, equally as good, and the population, the recruitable population would definitely be much appreciated. We're doing some actually decent damage to the Axis right here, and it definitely helps that Yugoslavia hasn't fallen in yet. So my original plan yet again has completely shattered, because the Allies are too good. Because the Allies are actually doing something, that means that my original plan is just failing, which is marvelous. It's obviously great that yet another plan fails because of the Allies. Usually it completely fails because the Allies are completely incompetent. This time it fails because the Allies are too competent. And yeah, that's it's like you always lose no matter what with the Allies. No matter what you do, the Allies always screw you over, whether it be guaranteeing random countries in the middle of nowhere because you want to have fun, God forbid, or God forbid more rather. But yeah, this time it's actually because they're too good. Now that's a strange situation, to be sure, and yeah, the Comintern isn't doing too terribly, but the Soviet Union is being pushed back towards the northern side, which is actually quite curious, because they usually get completely shattered in the middle and in the south, and they usually tend to do quite okay in the north, because it has a whole bunch of rivers up there, and the mid and the south tends to be like plains. So even historically speaking, the Axis were doing better down south than in the north. And in the middle, obviously, they were just completely smashing and made it to Moscow. So it's yeah, it's quite an interesting situation. But I suppose for quite a while we'll have to just sit here and defend against the Germans, because that's just what we're going to do, and that's our battle plan. That's our grand battle plan. And hopefully the Allies and the Soviets manage to do enough damage for us to actually do something. But ultimately. Yeah, this is basically it. This is what we're gonna do. Just sit here and defend. That's what we originally wanted to do, and it would be helpful if we actually had more manpower and more core territory, thus more soldiers and more industry and everything like that. As in, if we were playing fascist Hungary, maybe it'd be better. Even better if you were playing the fascist Kingdom of Hungary, because you do gain a lot more territory, a lot faster. Which means that you gain, well, more industry and everything like that, more access to actually building that industry. And yeah, it would be better basically if we were not playing Communist Hungary. But here we are. We're actually making it work. But I'm kind of worried about the Germans just pushing through, because Hungary is all plains. Even obviously in real life. But Hungary is really terrible when it comes to trying to defend the territory. That's why I try to build a lot of forts. But, well, looks like they just weren't sufficient enough for something like this. Hopefully it's going to be okay, but with Communist Hungary you never know. Okay, so it's a year later, and the Soviets finally decided to, of all things, plan a naval invasion and land in northern Germany, so I guess it's time to attack. And this is going to be the crucial moment when we see if the plan is terrible or if it actually has some sort of relevance when it comes to playing Hungary, or Communist Hungary more specifically. Because the Soviets are distracting the Germans so much, and we've been defending and killing them and draining them of equipment and manpower and everything like that so much that pushing now, and pushing all the way, should be relatively easy. We've already captured Vienna, so yeah, we should be just smashing them, right? But actually against Slovakia we're just completely failing. So it looks like the plan succeeded, kind of, because we're mounting a pretty decent counterattack, but only with the help of the Soviets, the Allies, the everyone. And even then, it's not exactly all that successful, right? So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one. I've decided to upgrade my divisions a little bit so that they're actually more capable when attacking. And yeah, it took me a year to get to just do anything with those divisions, and most of that was just defending. But oh, a small little encirclement, how wonderful! But yeah, looks like this attack isn't going really anywhere. Managed to capture Vienna, I guess that's something, and could capture Bratislava actually here. But oh, the Mexicans joined us. Yeah, that's gonna turn the tide of war. The Soviets are still failing. The Soviets are still failing, yet they decided to do a naval invasion northern Germany, which is quite curious. I think that not doing something like that and just retaking your core territory might be better, pushing them back to Poland. But yeah, not being able to push is really annoying. It's really annoying because usually the plan is you defend for a while and then you mount a successful counterattack. This counterattack is only kind of successful, which is really frustrating. So the plan sort of worked, but it's really unsatisfying. And already the attack is sort of tapering out. It's not really going anywhere. A lot of red bubbles, red arrows, whatever those things are. So we pushed a little bit into Austria and Slovakia and Czechia, but not a lot of stuff going on anywhere. And this is going to be another long and brutal war. I can already sense it. I hate these kinds of playthroughs, I suppose. These kinds of games and Hearts of Iron 4 where it's just such a long and grueling war. And it's always when you're playing as a minor nation and you're relying on the AI big nations to do anything. That is, if you're not playing within the Axis, because the Germans just steamroll everything. But if you're playing within the, especially if you're playing within the commentary, it's always a long, grueling, annoying war, because obviously the Russians have a lot of debuffs at the beginning, so it's yeah, this isn't going to be pretty, and I can already sense that. Okay, so half a year later, the Soviets are actually pushing back the Germans a tiny bit, but it's not really all that effective, and I'm really getting tired of this, so I just declared an all-out attack, and I don't necessarily care. It's time to just push, and really disregard the lives of the Hungarian Red Army at the moment, because we're not getting anywhere. The Yugoslavians are pushing into Italy, but it's not actually doing anything when it comes to the amount of German soldiers on our borders and the amount that the Soviets can push them back. Seems like the Allies, while they're really competent when it comes to this game, seems like even though they're competent, it's not actually having that much of an impact when it comes to defeating the Germans. All they did is just foil my plan, my grand plan. All they did is just foil that, and that's it. They didn't actually do anything. So, great stuff. Great stuff. The game always finds a way to screw you over, no matter what you do. No matter what's your grand plan, the game always screws you over and then leaves you hanging, which is a wonderful feeling. And so here we go, we're just gonna push forward, and it's actually kind of working, mostly because, well, I don't know why, mostly because probably the Soviets are also attacking the same point in southern Ukraine, or just in the Ukraine, so it's working somewhat, and hopefully it's going to be relatively successful. The one thing that's really helping the Soviets is that they managed to limit their front line only to the area of central and northern Russia at this point. So it's actually not that terrible for them. We're taking care mostly of our front on our own. Obviously you can see a few Soviet soldiers here and there, but while they are helping with the attack, there's not that many of them, and so it's not actually all that important. And you can see how effective the Soviet soldiers are, but by the amount that they are pushing within their own territory, as in none or very limited, probably because they still had a lot of the debuffs that you get from the Great Purge. And not entirely sure how effective the Great Patriotic War is within the current version, but we're gonna return that territory to Poland just so we don't have to police it, because the manpower is gonna run out quite quickly if we keep this up. And it's not so much about the manpower even, it's about the equipment as well, because our industry, while it's relatively okay, it's not that great. You can sustain these amounts of attacks if you're playing a great power like the USSR, or, well, I was gonna say China, but not necessarily China. With China, you mostly just overwhelm them with numbers. But you can sustain these attacks if you're playing as a nation that has, great amount of industry, even France, Britain, even Italy to a certain extent. But as Hungary, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Not to mention we have to dedicate a lot of that equipment to just policing, because, yeah, we've essentially doubled our size, or almost doubled our size at this point of the original Hungarian People's Republic, so it's not going to be wonderful. Not to mention we also have to police, obviously, all the Romanian territories and basically everything that we've captured. Yeah, we've more than doubled our size, actually, so that's a lot of policing, and that's a lot of equipment, and that's a lot of manpower that could be used on the front line, but can't be used on the front line because, well, because it just can't. So there we go. I requested a few... Oh, look, even the Allies are being pushed back now. So, yeah, again, being screwed over by the Allies. The moment I thought that, oh, they're actually doing great, they're competent, everything like that. No, actually, that was just a fluke. That was probably a few American divisions pushing forward a little bit. And then they just left, and then the Allies were like, okay, and then they just all left. And yeah, so that's awesome. That's actually one thing that's kind of a little bit bad about this new policing system, is that those territories are effectively being captured by French, American, British, the Commonwealth divisions, and everything like that, even Greek divisions. But the Yugoslavians have to do all the policing while also worrying about the front line, and so I think that's not necessarily the greatest system. Maybe if a certain nation captures a tile, even though they're your ally, they maybe should dedicate a little bit of occupation policing towards that effort. Now, obviously, democracies have, I think, a reduced amount of equipment and divisions that they have to dedicate when it comes to policing, but it's still a little bit annoying. Meanwhile, we're just smashing through the Germans. But as you can see, we're already reaching the 200,000 mark when it comes to manpower, and I don't even want to check our equipment numbers because those are probably completely terrible. Yeah, they're just completely terrible. Oh yeah, by the way, the Soviet Union annexed Finland because, well, I don't know. The Winter War, I guess, got a little bit too hot for them, so they annexed Finland, and now it means there's even a a Scandinavian front, in fact. So the Russians have to worry about an extra front. So it's yeah, it's kind of annoying, but. Yeah, they annexed Tanatuba. That's a great move, Stalin. That's exactly what you should be worrying about right now. Tanatuba with its, like 2 factories. Yeah, that's going to be a great help. Not to mention we also have to police Tanatuba, I think. I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, there we go. But we're about to split the Germans in half. Hopefully that's going to reduce some strain when it comes to the Soviets, and yeah, hopefully this war is going to be over quite soon, because again, it's grueling, it's long, it's annoying, and that's just how it is. The Liberation of Warsaw, now that's a good sign. And since we returned it to the Polish, that means that hopefully they can also start recruiting, and we're gonna have quite a big weight off our backs. As it transpires, the Allies have screwed me over once again because they left Yugoslavia, and Yugoslavia almost fell, so I had to transfer a lot of divisions down south, which means that we can't push Berlin all that quickly here in the German front, and we have to, I don't know, worry over a few tiles. But okay, so recapturing Yugoslavia now as Hungary, because the Allies just left. You remember how deep the Allies were into Italian territory with Yugoslavia? No, they just left. But Turkey joined the Allies, so I guess that's a thing. And yeah, so we're doing this now. Yet again, fighting over Yugoslavia for some reason. It's like if individual elements within this game happened all at once, like Italy conquering Yugoslavia, Germany pushing into the Soviet Union, and I don't know, a few other things, let's say. At that point, my plan would have been tested thoroughly. But at this point, it's like, why even bother, right? It's like December 1942, it's almost 1943, and we're standing basically outside of Berlin. Actually, we already captured it, I think. Yeah, we already captured Berlin. So, there we go. We captured Berlin already. Somehow. I wasn't even looking. But we captured Berlin. And there we go. So, captured Berlin. Yeah, it's the end of the war. The Hungarians had to do everything this game. We had to do everything. Even save Yugoslavia, which is such cringe. But there we go. At least we conquered. At least we conquered Romania. That's the real goal. And we still haven't even captured all of Austria. We just pushed north and north and north, and that's, well, not the best strategy in retrospect, but if we actually pushed into Austria further and sort of reconquered the entirety of Austria, that would have been actually quite terrible, because we'd have a very long front, and we don't necessarily have the troops for that. But as you can see, we have 0 manpower, yes, and even less equipment than 0. We are in the negative, so yeah, it's just oh, but the Yalta Conference transpired. Yes, that's very good. Yes, that's exactly. Hopefully the Hungarians had the major say within this Yalta Conference, because we're doing everything. But yeah, just don't play Communist Hungary, okay? It's terrible. It's terrible. No matter the strategy you choose, no, the Allies screw you over at every single point in the game, obviously. But not to mention, we had to do everything, and we have no bonuses. So doing everything without any sort of combat bonuses or industrial bonuses, or even just having core territory within historically Hungarian territory that we have claims on, and that turns into a core territory if you grab it with any sort of other government Hungary, you know, like democratic Hungary, I'm not entirely sure, but fascist Hungary, the fascist kingdom of Hungary, and monarchist Hungary. You all have cores within those territories, but not with communist Hungary. No, not with communist Hungary, because fun is not allowed. Fun is not allowed. Okay, the Germans are done, and all that's left is to push into Italy. Oh, this was terrible. This was worse than the Little Entente France, because, well, the Little Entente France, at least you're playing a great power. At least you have a lot of manpower, a lot of industry, even though you have to do everything yourself, and all your allies are a big disappointment. At least you're a great power. At least you don't have to expend all your manpower by doing the work that the Soviet Union, the United States, Britain, France, every one of those was supposed to do. We did it with Hungary, with no core territory other than the three, provinces that you start with. And a little bit of manpower, obviously, from the Soviet Union when it comes to garrisons. But, yeah, this is all Hungary. You did everything. And it was terrible. It was terrible because you do everything that the major powers are supposed to do. Yet obviously you don't have the equipment, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the bonuses, you don't have the industry, you have nothing. You have nothing like the great powers, yet you're supposed to do everything. Ultimately, the plan of being really annoying in the rear of the Axis forces was actually successful. That's what allowed us to be capable of doing all these things, because if we weren't in such a strategically, in some senses really disadvantageous, but in some senses really advantageous position when it comes to the impact that we can have on the war, if we weren't in such a position, then wouldn't be able to have such an impact. So the plan in theory actually worked almost to a T, because we accomplished basically everything that I wanted to accomplish. We wanted to be annoying to the Axis, wanted to stall them, wanted to hurt them in the rear, essentially, and that all worked, but it was really painful for me as a player, and the game really lagged there for some reason. I suppose, I don't know, it's getting laggy, so yeah, I guess this is where I'll just leave it off. And don't play Communist Hungary. It's terrible. It's absolutely ridiculous. And if any country deserves a rework, it's, well, there's actually quite a few of them, like Italy, the Soviet Union, Poland, Japan to a certain extent. But Communist Hungary needs a rework. Hungary in general needs a rework because the army-focused repath is quite terrible. Czechoslovakia needs a lot of countries need a rework. What I'm trying to say is that Communist Hungary definitely needs a rework. Even just giving Transylvania and Southern Slovakia as core states, there we go. What a war! What a terrible war. So there we go. Thanks, Kings, for watching, and see you next time. And don't play Communist Hungary.